What's going on, guys? It's Shadow. In this video, I'm going to be telling you guys about how I became obsessed with learning and how you can do it too. The most obvious benefits with becoming obsessed with learning is the fact that you're going to be able to consume information way quicker and with way less reluctancy, just speeding up your growth process, which is overall going to make it faster and more efficient to consume information and to learn better. I'm going to tell you guys a bit of a personal story so you can understand my experience, and this is going to help you relate potentially, as well as just have an idea as to where you can get started. So for a majority of my childhood, I did not like learning at all. Like when it came to school, I hated school a lot. Like I was always just doing whatever I could to avoid schoolwork and learning. But I had a period of time when I was in high school, around my junior year of high school, where there was a specific event that got me to finally lock in. And that was my desire to join the military, specifically the Air Force. At that point, I had a reason to learn because there was this exam called the ASVAB, which is pretty much an aptitude test that you have to take in order to qualify for certain jobs within the military and to even get in to begin with. So that required me to lock in and really study for that exam, because if you get a low score on that exam, you're basically not going to be able to get any jobs. And I wanted to get the job that I wanted and also secure my slot into the Air Force, because that was my dream at the time. I had a specific mentor at the time that was very intelligent, and he just happened to push me in the right direction that made me like learning. And I'm going to tell you guys what I did and how that still carries over into how I am today and how you guys can apply that as well. I went by a step-by-step process, and I'm going to tell you guys about the first step. And we have the board here, so I'm going to write that down. The first step is to learn what you enjoy. And this, I want to add like step 1.5, because this is pretty closely related to it, but also make what you learn fun. This, honestly, we'll make this step 2 actually, because this is a little bit different. But we got the first 2 steps here. Learn what you enjoy, and step 2, make what you learn fun. So the first step is going to build the building blocks for you wanting to continue learning and you enjoying learning, and that's to learn what you enjoy. And so I started by using, this is kind of interrelated with the last video I just uploaded, which was the power of questions. It should be at the time of this recording, I'm not entirely sure, but there, as of the time of recording this, is a video that's up called the power of questions, and I pretty much use this with the learn what you enjoy process, which I started by, well, I'll write that down a bit later, but I just looked up a bunch of stuff that I was curious about. I'm telling you, that was like anything. That was like why I looked up stuff about, like I researched a bunch of wars. Like I researched World War II, the Vietnam War, the Cold War, all these things that interested me. I researched, government and politics. I researched science, because science, one of my favorite subjects. It's a little bit different now that I'm in college because it's not as relevant given what I'm studying. But in high school and below, science was pretty much my favorite subject. And so stuff about science, whether that was space, botany, biology. I remember I was studying the periodic table. I tried to memorize it. I was unsuccessful, but I did learn a lot of things about the periodic table and about matter and elements, which I still remember to this day. I also studied vocab and grammar. So vocab, grammar. I studied a lot of vocabulary words, and I actually haven't really used many of these words. I still know them, but it's like they're kind of niche, obscure words that you're not going to be really using in day-to-day conversation, because written and spoken language is much different. So a lot of these words were more written language, which would be good for writing something like a paper, an essay, or a novel, but not necessarily for speaking in day-to-day conversation. I also learned about geography and stuff, and science topics like tectonic shifts and stuff about the earth, space, blah blah. So these are just a couple examples, but these are some educational topics. I also learned about electricity because that was part of the ASVAB, and I still remember these things today, which is pretty crazy because I haven't used a lot of this information in my day-to-day life. But these were a lot of the topics that I found interesting at the time, and then I'll tell you what I did next. We talked about the learning part. Now we're going to talk about the obsession part. And how do you become obsessed with something exactly? So to become obsessed with something, you're going to need dopamine. And so what I did was I repeated the behavior, which I just looked up a fuck ton of stuff on these examples, bro, on these topics. So if I had something on space, I looked up like, I can't remember all of these, but I had to at least do 100 or more Google searches on just space alone. And then I would just search, write down, take notes, quiz myself. And then the repetition, the more I kept on engaging with that information, the more that I craved going towards that, and I craved continuing to learn, which would eventually make me start to like learning. So dopamine leads to craving. Craving leads to desire. And then fulfillment leads to wanting more. So I naturally crave the information, and then I desire to get smarter, and I felt fulfilled when I gained more information. And then now I was granted access to more information that built upon what I just learned, which led me to wanting to learn more and then get into more advanced topics, which just led into this dopamine loop. And this talks more so about education, but I'm going to get into how you become obsessed with anything, but it's pretty interlinked. It's just slightly nuanced when it comes to education. So like we mentioned earlier, to become obsessed with anything, you have to do that thing so fucking much that literally it creates so much dopamine releases that you crave that thing super hard. So just taking away the subject of education right now, if you talk about martial arts, working out, what's something else? Let's see, eating. So to become obsessed with these things, you gotta do them so much because, like, for example, I have an obsession with practicing martial arts, which is literally because I do it every single day. Every single day I train in the art of karate, and this naturally creates a craving to get better and to get stronger because I see that as I put in more effort, I get results, and then the results I get allows me to get to the next step. So the same thing goes with working out. If you work out often and you do it, because no matter what it is, the first couple of times it's gonna suck, but the more you keep showing up and the more work you keep putting in, it's going to become less painful. It's going to become more fun and more fulfilling and more gratifying. There was this one point in time where I was working out like crazy, and I'm telling you, like, I was working out 5 to 6 times a week. Now, you can do this, but I don't think it's really necessary to work out 6 times a week. I think like 5, probably the best you want to go when you're factoring rest time. But at the time, I was that fucking obsessed, bro. I didn't give a fuck about how often I was doing it. I was just doing it. And so if we look at 6 times a week out of a 7-day week, that is a frequency rate of, you got 7 days, like about 3, you got like 4 weeks in a couple of days. So you just take 6 times 4, which is fucking math, 24. And then you have 24 times a month, and this is just once a day, right? So if you were a fucking beast animal and you say you worked out like twice a day, or twice these 24 times a month, that would be 48 times you showed up, and that's going to create deep obsession. That's just 1 month. We're not even talking about like several months to a year, which is usually where you'll start to see results. So repetition, I can't fucking spell today. Repetition, consistency, drive, desire, and craving are all key things. I'm trying to draw a star. Can't fucking draw. Okay. These are all key things that lead to obsession. And we can apply the same thing just to learning. There was this one point in time where I was working out like crazy. And I'm telling you, like, I was working out 5 to 6 times a week. Now, you can do this, but I don't think it's really necessary to work out 6 times a week. I think like 5, probably the best you want to go when you're factoring rest time. But at the time, I was that fucking obsessed, bro. I didn't give a fuck about how often I was doing it. I was just doing it. And so if we look at 6 times a week out of a 7-day week, that is a frequency rate of, you got 7 days, like about 3, you got like 4 weeks in a couple of days. So you just take 6 times 4, which is fucking math, 24. And then you have 24 times a month. And this is just once a day, right? So if you were a fucking beast animal and you say you worked out like twice a day, or twice these 24 times a month, that would be 48 times you showed up, and that's going to create deep obsession. That's just 1 month. We're not even talking about like several months to a year, which is usually where you'll start to see results. So repetition, I can't fucking spell today. Repetition, consistency, drive, desire, and craving are all key things. I'm trying to draw a star. Can't fucking draw. Okay. These are all key things that lead to obsession. And we can apply the same thing just to learning. Now we can get back into the next part, which was making running fun. And some ways that you can do this is by gamifying it. So one way that I do this is you can use AI, and I use a couple of different AI software or AI platforms, but some easy ones are ChatGPT, that does that. Gemini, I use this also. Now the one that you use, it really depends on your preference and what you're using it for. Like, I use Gemini more so for coding and stuff like that to help teach me programming when I don't understand things. But ChatGPT, I use that just for general questions. And so pretty much what you can do is that when you don't understand something, you can either have the AI explain it to you in a gamified way, which I'll give you a bit more details on how you can do this, but that's just one way you can do it. So you can have it explain concepts to you in a gamified way. And you don't just have to use AI for this. You can do this yourself too. It's just that AI makes it a lot easier and just simpler to get started with. So you have explain concepts in a gamified way. And then you can also quiz yourself and give yourself assignments in a gamified way too, whether that's manually or through AI. Like some ways that I'll do this is that Fire Emblem Three Houses, one of my favorite games of all time. And so what I do is I talk to the AI and tell it, hey, like quiz me on this subject. Like for example, what I'm currently studying is error handling in programming, specifically in the Python language. And I'll tell it like, hey, give me some practice assignments or some practice questions or whatever based on Fire Emblem Three Houses battle system, and have the questions be like enemies, because now this makes it fun because it goes from boring repetitive task to fun and rewarding. This is going to be extra effective if you're a gamer, but even if you're not a gamer like that, like it's not really a big deal because it still has that same objective, which is you want to make it fun, you want to make it entertaining, and you want to reduce friction and give yourself positive feedback. You can also give yourself different learning challenges. Like, for example, with math, you can be like, well, like I said, you have the manual method or with AI, but you can set the challenge for yourself to be like, okay, do this concept this number of times under these circumstances. You can really get as creative with this as you want. And what this does is it's gonna mix and match the different aspects, so it's not just one extremely predictable, repetitive thing. This works especially effective for neurodiverse people because like I have ADHD, so my brain really likes novelty and when things are different. So changing things up can just keep things fresh and creative and just prevent burnout and boredom in general, which would stop you from otherwise moving. For the third step, that is going to be very crucial. If you don't take away anything from this video, I at least want you to take away this. So the third step is learn daily. And this can literally be anything you want, like preferably stuff that's relevant that you're going to use, but it can be anything that you're interested in, anything that you're currently studying, whether that's, you know, if you're in college, stuff related to your major, if you're curious about like medical stuff, about neuroscience, science, why the grass outside is green, stuff about your car, anything. You just need to learn daily. And it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be a huge mountain. Like you don't need to climb a mountain in one day. Just take one step. Like imagine learning is stairs. One day you just go one step, you go another step. These were kind of in my head stairs, but it turned into like a mini histogram. Yeah, like each day you take tiny steps, and this will lead to massive growth because these are 1% increments that will compound into a lot of growth. And if you learn a little bit each day, 1%, like even 1% effort, then you're gonna get 365 times better by the end of the year. I can't stress this enough, guys. Repetition, repetition, repetition. It does not have to be a lot. Just learn anything daily, preferably stuff that's relevant to what you're pursuing. But that's not only going to stack up information, but it's going to establish a habit, create consistency, and then it's just going to create dopamine loops that's going to make you want to keep on learning more and more. You're going to get hooked onto it. Like, trust me, you're going to want to learn every single day. And it's going to get to a point where like you won't even be able to stop yourself from learning. That's how effective it'll get. That's the end of this video on how I became obsessed with learning and how you guys can do it too. I wanted to make it quick and simple to understand with these 3 key steps. And appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you on the next one.